Hi everyone and welcome to Knitting Noodles. In today's video, I am going to go over a little bit of bargain products, what you really need to start knitting, what you can skip, and where you can find the best prices. So to start off prompting this video, I was looking up what a lot of websites recommend for beginners. Now there's this one site that I found, not to pick on them, but they had 17 things that all knitters need. And I'm just gonna go over their list and kind of show that you don't necessarily need all the things that they say that you do. Now the first thing is needles. Now, as you have seen in, I believe, my first video of this series, you technically don't need traditional needles. You can use pencils, whatever's laying around, 2 sticks, go for it. Those are your needles. Technically don't need needles. Now they also say double point circular. Definitely you can add those in later on as you get more advanced. Not something to add early on, not necessary at all. And there are many techniques where you can work in the round without actually buying those specialty needles. Next thing that they say that you need is yarn. Now yarn, I covered in my last video, and how you can get the best priced yarn. This is something you don't want to get like dollar store quality, yucky feeling. You want a yarn that you actually like, but has the best possible price. So I go over in my last video where to find good quality yarn. The next point is scissors. Now this is something you are going to need. Get you a good pair of nice sharp scissors. You do need this for knitting. Can't really skimp on that, and most people have them in the house. Next point is tapestry needles. Now tapestry needles, there are many different types that you can get, anywhere from dollar store pack plastic ones. Does that work at all? Plastic needles, all the way to more expensive from the craft store metal ones. Personally, I prefer the metal ones. They're a little pricier, maybe like $2 for 2. These you could get like 5 for $1. I find that the hole is a little bigger, so it gets caught easier. But if you're starting out, this is perfectly fine. I still sometimes use it. Personal preference is metal, but definitely cheaper. And there's really not anything wrong with it. It's just my personal preference to use the metal. So if you want to cut corners, get the plastic ones. You are going to need to get these. Otherwise, your ends are going to be all over the place. Next thing that they recommend getting is stitch markers. So these are some stitch markers. There are some that are just circles. These are nice because they also clip on. I only got this because it came in a little pack with a bunch of other stuff, and I only got it in this past year. So I have lived perfectly fine without these. You do not technically need them. What works just as well, safety pins. And if safety pins, you don't have access to that, I used to always use twisty ties. So twisty ties on bread, I would take that, twist them onto my needle, and I had a stitch marker. It worked for me. Sometimes bread tags as well, you could just hook that on there instead of clipping. If you need like a hook, use a bread tag, just clip that on. Works just as well, and it's free. The next point they have is stitch holders. Now this is all in the necessary. They have a list later on of their 17 that, you know, added in later in your collection. But this is considered necessary, is a stitch marker, which I have right here. Again, I only got it this past year. Totally have lived without it. It's handy, but it's not necessary. I have a cable needle, which came in a pack handed down. Someone passed away and we got all needles. So this was in there. You can use this to hold stitches. Now, holding stitches, you take them off the needle and you don't work them at all. They might fall off of this, so what I would do is I'd put rubber bands around here. You know, it works just as well as a cable needle is a regular needle. Just take an extra one, stick the extra stitches in, wrap rubber bands around the end, and you got yourself a secure stitch holder. The other thing is a measuring tape or a ruler. I didn't grab mine with me over here, but definitely have a measuring tape or a ruler. Super handy, and you are going to need to measure things as you knit, even as a beginner. Now on to the add to your collection later, which the next point is a crochet hook, which I only have because my mother can crochet, so we have a ton of crochet hooks. That's the only reason why I have it. The only real reason you would need a crochet hook for knitting is fixing drop stitches, and I have a video on this and how you can fix the drop stitch without one of these. So, also not very necessary. Kind of it's handy, but it's honestly not even that much quicker. Next thing they have is a row counter, which is one of these. You kind of slip it onto the end of your needle and turn it right side, and you turn the little thing and it changes the number. I don't use this at all. I use an old-fashioned sticky note or scrap of paper, and I just tally my rows up. I've always done this and I just find it easier. I got this again in a little pack, so I was like, ooh, that looks cool. I've never had one before. I've heard some people use it. Paper just works better for me. Another thing on here is a Swift and Winder, which is this, and that I do not have.
While making this video, I realized that I didn't actually really know what a Swift and Winder was, so let me correct myself now. What it is taking skeins and turning them into little cakes of yarn. It's not purely just for making skeins. It's from turning skeins into balls, which if you buy balls, then it doesn't really make a difference. This is only for if you buy, like, most high quality wool comes in skeins. So that was the only reason that you would need it for.
The next thing it has is washi tape or sticky notes for if you are using a knitting graph. So this is a knitting or knitting chart. This is a knitting chart. Now you would follow this row by row, and it symbolizes all the different stitches. So they're saying to use a sticky note or a piece of washi tape to cover up the row that you just did. Again, handy. Sticky notes work for everything, so if that's what you need it for, go for it. I mean, I haven't had an issue yet, cross my fingers, without using that, but that one's a benign tip. I mean, you're gonna have sticky notes anyway to count your stitches. The next one is a yarn guide. Don't have that, don't even really know what that is, but they say that you need it. I haven't needed it. A needle gauge is very handy. I showed this in one of my last videos. I couldn't find it today, but it's a big square that you stick your needles in, tells you what size they are, has a little square, like a little L in the bottom where you can count gauge, and then it has a measuring ruler on the top. Super handy, not necessary, but it is helpful to get later on. Again, I only got it this past year. I've lived without it. Next one is yarn bobbins. This is for small stashes of yarn, kind of like thread, just wind it around it. Not necessary at all, just wind it into tiny balls. I've got an entire little crate of it, and it works fine. I haven't had any problems with that. Yarn threader, not necessary at all, unless your eyesight is going, then maybe, but I mean, look at these holes. Look at them. They're big enough. We can see that. I don't think you need a yarn threader for that. But maybe that's just me. The other one that they have is needle caps, which that used to be a thing when I started out, that everyone's like, oh, you need needle caps. You don't at all. All you need is rubber bands and wrap it around. And honestly, unless you have younger siblings or pets that'll drag it off the needle, you don't even need that. You just have to push the yarn all the way to the end of the needle and it'll stay there securely. If you do have pets or younger siblings who like to mess with your stuff, you just take your needles and you wrap a rubber band around the end as a stopper. That is free. And the last thing they have is wool wash kits, which I think is a money scheme, anything with a kit. All you need is a wool wash, which you can find most places, or a gentle detergent. Wool wash only if you have like 100% wool stuff. You just have to make sure not to scrub it. You hand wash it, submerge it, and then you just keep submerging until all the soap comes out. You squeeze it out, and then that's it. You obviously don't throw it in the dryer. Don't put it in the machine washer. You just wash it in a little bowl. That's all you need. You don't need a kit. Kit's unnecessary. Now, the different places where you can get this stuff, what I deem necessary, a lot of stuff you can find at the dollar store, craft stores, on sale. One super cool place to get it is Hobbi. They have a cool system where every time you purchase, if you make an account, you collect points. And then they have an entire shop dedicated to just points. You can only buy this stuff with points. And they have everything from yarn needles, they have stitch holders, they have scissors. So if you buy enough yarn or patterns or anything else on there, they also have free patterns on there. You could use those points to purchase other accessories, which is super cool. And technically you're not spending any extra money on it. You're just using points from previous. They also have a lot of sales that go on, so fairly cheap yarn as well. If you want to check them out, the link is down below. This is an affiliate link, so if you're gonna purchase something from them, I just ask that you please use the link down below. Thank you for watching the video, and I will see you all next week. Bye!